Have you ever wondered how your absolute favorite song went from just a little idea to this massive global hit? Well, today we are pulling back the curtain on the secret boss behind all that music, the music producer.
So, when you think about a hit song, who pops into your head first? The singer with that incredible voice? Maybe the songwriter or the whole band? Look, they're all totally essential, of course, but there's usually one person who's guiding the entire project, kind of like the captain of the ship.
And that person is the music producer. Honestly, the best way to think about it is like this. They're the film director for the song. They're the one in charge of the big picture, making all the key creative and technical decisions that shape the music from its very first note to the final version you hear.
So, how does a song actually come to life? Well, a producer guides it through 4 key stages, and that's the journey we're about to take. We'll start with the blueprint, then we'll jump into the recording studio, piece together the sound puzzle, and finally, add that last bit of polish. Let's do it.
Okay, first up, creating the blueprint. This is what we call the pre-production phase, and it's where all the really important planning happens. A great song is never an accident. It's carefully built on a solid foundation way before anyone even thinks about stepping into a studio.
It's actually kind of amazing how much work goes on before a single note gets recorded. The producer helps the artist choose the strongest songs, they'll perfect the musical arrangement, figuring out the perfect spot for that big chorus to hit. And they even handle all the practical stuff, like setting a budget and booking the studio time.
All right, so the blueprint is done. Now it's time for the really fun part. Let's head into the recording studio and see how they capture the magic.
Once you're inside the studio, the producer's role totally shifts. Now, they're more like a coach. Their number one job is to create this positive, creative vibe and to guide the musicians to give their absolute best, most emotional, most energetic performances. They're listening for that one perfect take that just gives you goosebumps. And how do they capture all this incredible sound? Well, the main tool for any modern producer is something called a digital audio workstation, or DAW for short. Just think of it as the ultimate music-making software. It lets the producer record, edit, and arrange every single sound, from the quietest whisper to the loudest drum hit, all on a computer.
This really shows you just how hands-on a producer is. They're supervising where to put the microphones, they're sifting through all the recordings to decide which take is the absolute best, and, this is super important, they make sure every single instrument is recorded on its own separate layer, or track. You'll see why that's so crucial in a minute.
Okay, so all the individual parts have been recorded. Now what? We're heading into the final, critical stages of making a song sound amazing: mixing and mastering. This is where all those raw recordings get polished into a professional-sounding masterpiece.
First up is mixing. Now remember how every instrument was recorded on its own track? Well, mixing is the art of blending all those separate tracks together. The whole goal is to make sure that every single element, from the deep bass line to the lead vocal, has its own space in the song so you can hear everything perfectly.
Let's look at a few of the producer's main tools here. First, there's volume. That one's pretty simple. It's just about balancing how loud each part is. Then you've got panning, which is really cool. It lets you place sounds in the left or right speaker, which creates that wide, immersive feel in your headphones. And then there's compression. Think of this as a smart volume control. It evens out the performance by turning down the loudest parts and turning up the quietest parts, making everything sound really smooth and powerful.
So after the song is perfectly mixed, it moves on to mastering. This is the absolute final step, the last quality check. It gives the whole song one last layer of polish, boosts the overall volume so it's as loud as other hits, and makes sure it sounds fantastic and clear on any device you can think of, from tiny earbuds to huge car speakers.
So what's the real difference between mixing and mastering? It's pretty simple when you think about it this way. Mixing is all about blending the different parts inside of one single song. Mastering is about putting that final shiny polish on the entire song or album, getting it ready for the world to hear.
But, being a top-tier producer isn't just about knowing all the tech and which buttons to push. There's a secret sauce, and it has a lot less to do with technology and a whole lot more to do with people.
A truly great producer has to be a leader, a motivator, and a fantastic communicator. They have to manage the budget and keep an eye on the clock. They need unbelievable patience and focus. And maybe, most importantly, they have to hold on to a strong, clear creative vision for where the song needs to end up. And that vision, it often leads to something we call a sonic signature. A lot of famous producers develop their own unique sound or style that makes their songs instantly recognizable. It might be a certain drum sound they always use, or the way they record vocals. It's like their artistic fingerprint.
and it lets you know who was behind the mixing desk.
So, how do you even become a producer? Well, there's no single path, really. A lot of people start out as musicians themselves, or maybe as an intern at a studio. They learn the tech, build up a portfolio working with local bands, and from there, it's all about networking and building a reputation that gets you gigs with bigger artists and record labels.
So, when you really break it all down, from that very first spark of an idea all the way to a song that's played all over the world, the music producer is the guide and the visionary for that whole amazing journey.
So now you know the secret. You know who the real boss is behind your favorite music, which really just leaves one last question to think about. If you were the producer, what kind of sound would you create?